We are 2 weeks into VCT Americas Stage 1 in the VCT 2025 season, and there are some teams that have been performing surprisingly well and some teams that have been disappointing. So it's time to power rank all 12 teams. We are doing this weekly, so this is an updated power ranking from last week. I do these power rankings continuously. I update them after every game, and then we get to the end of the week, and here we are. So without further ado, let's get right into it and see how these teams changed. So this is the board we have today. We will be starting from the bottom, so at the number 12 spot, we have Furia. Furia had a pretty solid map 1 against Energy. It looked like they were going to steal that match. However, Energy then recovered and started playing a lot better, and Furia just couldn't keep up, getting absolutely decimated on those final 2 maps, so they do move down 1 from where they were last week. I had them at the number 11 spot. They are now at the bottom spot. They probably wouldn't have moved to the bottom spot if it wasn't for 2G having the week that they had, but we'll get to them later. Overall, looks like Furia are going to continue to be in the bottom part of this power rankings for the foreseeable future. Don't know how many matches I see them winning in this stage. They are up against Leviathan next, who have dropped as well. So we'll see what they can do with that match, but for now, they are at the bottom spot. Moving on to number 11, moving down 1 spot from last week, we have Evil Geniuses. Now, I was thinking at keeping them at the number 10 spot, but I figured that since they did lose to 100 Thieves, they didn't get a map, that I felt like I should drop them down at least 1 spot. At the time, 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses were pretty close on the power ranking, so because of that win, 100 Thieves did end up moving up, and Evil Geniuses were able to get that map close, but they weren't able to close it out or steal it away from 100 Thieves, so they do drop down 1 spot. I don't know how far I see this team going. I am getting a little bit worried of their chances. I don't know how far I see this team going. They're up against Sentinels this week, so we'll see how that match goes, but Sentinels are really needing a bounce back right now, so expect Sentinels to bring their A game, and Ye and company better be ready. Moving on to number 10, we have a team moving down 3 spots from where they were last week. I said that they were probably going to drop if they had a bad match, and Leviathan finds themselves in the bottom 3. They were at the number 7 spot in last week's power rankings, and then they had a very rough match against C9. C9 have been playing quite well, but Leviathan, in terms of talent, should be able to at least match them. But right now, the problem seems to be the fact that this team does have some very talented players on it, but the mix of them does not seem to work. The role swaps of King to Duelist is not working out so far. He had a better game against C9 than he did in the previous game, but it was still a pretty mediocre performance. Demon 1 was their top performer that match, but even he didn't play very well. So right now it's just looking all bad for Leviathan. I don't think the coaches are making the right decisions with the roles that they're putting these players on. I definitely think they should swap things back around. If you want to keep Rossi as IGL, fine, but I think put Kane on a different role than Duelist. I don't think he's built for it. And while I think Demon 1 can play some Smokes characters, he looked decent on Omen, he's good on Brimstone, we've seen him play that before, but just put a different player on Viper, please. It's just really weird to me how this team has Demon 1 and Tex, 2 players that have played Duelist in the past, and they're putting their former IGL on the Duelist role. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense, so this team right now is kind of crashing. They are up against Furia next, as previously stated, and I don't really like either team's chances there, to be completely honest, but Leviathan right now, number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have a very surprising move up. 2G is at the number 9 spot. Now, I thought about keeping them in the bottom 3, maybe moving them up to number 10, because I don't want to overreact too much to that win over Loud. It was definitely an upset win. Loud were having a pretty off day, and they still almost won both of those maps. However, 2G, with some incredible comeback ability, they really had to grind out both maps to win, but they got it done, and that gives 2G their first win of the season. So they still need to perform a lot better going forward if they're going to have any hope of having a good season. They won't have Spike until stage 2. I think they will improve when they get him, but for now, with what you have to start building some momentum and some chemistry, and then if that chemistry can carry over to stage 2 when you have Spike in, then this team could end up being a dark horse. I am not expecting that right now. I still expect this team to probably move back down into the bottom 3 next week. They are up against Crew next. Crew had a very good week, and they are very high on the power rankings, so I don't expect 2G to win that one, but crazier things have happened, and their match against Loud is proof of that, so we'll see what this team can do. It is interesting to note that this team only has 2 players left from that Ascension winning team. Only Silence and LZ are left, so this is a pretty smack together roster, but it worked out for 1 match, so we'll see what they can do. Their new additions are looking pretty decent, actually, at least if that Loud game is anything to go off of. Moving on to number 8, we have a team moving down 3 spots from where they were last week, Loud. Now, this is due to that rough 2-0 loss loss against 2G, and maybe I'm going to get some comments saying that, oh, 2G should be above them because they beat them. That's not how I do my power rankings. If I was taking that into consideration for everything would be a mess. When teams are right beside each other in the power rankings, a head-to-head matchup will affect that, but when these two teams are so far apart, it's just closed the gap. I still think by and large Loud is a better team than 2G, but they got punked during that match. They had the lead, they should have won map 1, they allowed 2G to get back in it, and as soon as they lost that map 1, it was just curtains for Loud. They just could not get up for that second map. At least when they actually did start to play better, 2G was already far enough that they had the ability to close it out. So they dropped down from the number 5 spot. Loud has this weird thing of during the middle of every season, they seem to have a slump, whether it be losing their only 2 matches at an international like they did in Tokyo as well as Copenhagen in 2022, or having a rough stage 1 last year, and so far this stage 1 is off to a pretty abysmal start. So this might be the patented Loud mid-season slump, or it's just a bad 2 matches that they can recover from. Moving on to number 7, we have a team moving up 1 spot from where they were last week, Energy. So Energy gave everybody a scare by losing that map 1 against Furia, and then they looked like the team that we think they are on those next 2 maps. Winning Pearl 13-2 and then Fracture 13-4, yeah, that's a pretty dominant win there. So for them, they can just brush off that first map loss, head into the next one with a little bit more confidence, and maybe that win was what this team needed. They seemed to play pretty poorly against C9, which is who they started their split against, but now that they're 1-1, it's essentially a must win for every match going forward. They are playing against G2 next, who have not lost in the Americas region in 2025 yet, so that's going to be an incredibly hard match to win. Then they're facing MIBR, then Leviathan. It's going to be a very tough schedule from here on out. So that win against Furia was very important, but we don't know where those other wins are going to come for this team. Most likely, I think this team is going to have to hope that they're going to get one of those tiebreakers to be able to get that 4th spot over some other teams that might end up having the same record as them. But those 3rd and 4th spots in their group are still up for grabs, so we'll see if they can seize the opportunity. They definitely need to get Mata going a lot more. He's been really good this year so far, but his first 2 matches of stage 1, there's definitely more there. I am expecting him to heat up a lot going forward, and if he starts to heat up, then this team should be a pretty formidable opponent. Also, please just get some help. The poor guy is doing everything out there. Moving on to the second half of the board, we have a team moving up 3 spots, and that is 100 Thieves. So them moving up from the number 9 spot is due to a couple different reasons. They did get that win over Evil Geniuses. It was a 2-0 victory, but as you can see, as to Evil Geniuses placement, that's not exactly a very difficult match to win, at least on paper. So they were definitely helped by the fact that Loud dropped this week. They were at the number 5 spot. If they had won against 2G, they probably would have just stayed, and then we probably would have seen C9 stay at 6 as well. But instead, we have this mess of a bottom half of the power rankings, so 100 Thieves benefit from that and move up to the top half. I almost considered putting Energy above them, but Energy lost a map against an arguably worse team, so thought, nah, let's not do that. So 100 Thieves are definitely benefiting off of the misfortune of teams like Loud. Loud are in their group, so them losing is a very big one for them. Their next match is against Loud, actually, so those are 2 teams really needing bounce back games. So there should be a really competitive match, but I think overall 100 Thieves have the better chance of winning that one, and that would definitely help their position in playoffs. Cryocells is starting to look really good right now. Him and EU had very good matches against Evil Geniuses. EU is a player that had a really good year last year. I've been waiting for him to heat up, and he's starting to. So we'll see if the rest of the roster can pull their weight as well. Want to see more from Asuna. I want to see a bit more from Xander as well. Busio's never going to be the best fragger, so I'm not expecting that from him, but overall, if this team can start to click, then they could see themselves having a pretty solid stage 1 like they did last year. Moving on to number 5, we have a team moving up 1 spot from last week, and that is C9. So C9 get that dominant win over Leviathan, snuffing out Rossi's revenge tour, and they were just outplaying Leviathan for 90% of that match. I think the only lead that Leviathan had was winning the pistol, and that was gone very quickly. So C9 did a really good job there, so they do deserve to move up. They are in the top 5. They're having a good stage 1 like they always do. I don't think this team ends up winning their group. They have G2 and MIBR in there, and you haven't seen those teams' names yet, but C9 look to be a pretty strong force in that group Omega. They definitely have a shot at getting that 2nd or 3rd spot in their group. They are playing against MIBR next. That is going to be a very important match. We'll be right in the middle of the group stage in week 3, so it's going to get a lot more competitive from here on out. So it's going to be a hard match for either team to win. I definitely want to see a bit more consistency from Oxy. Zeppa has stepped up big time in the stage 1 so far. Oxy has been good, don't get me wrong, but with a player that was touted as a superstar last year, I don't know if we've seen that yet. So if he can get to that point again, then this team should go on a pretty decent run. Vic also looks like a fantastic pickup for this team, one of the better rookies that's playing right now. So this team has a lot of good things going for them, but when have we said that before for C9? Yeah, a lot, and then it usually crumbles, but for now, hey, it's happy times. Moving on to the number 4 spot, moving down 1 spot from last week, we have Sentinels. So I saw a lot of comments saying that Sentinels should have been number 2 last week, and my BR was above them, and then they lost to Crew, which meant that they would move down even further. They're still in the top 4, they're still a really good team, but losing 2-0 to Crew is a bit of a rough loss. Crew is a very good team. I don't think it's a devastating loss by any means, but wins are going to be hard to come by. There's at least 3 teams that I would say have a realistic shot at getting that number 1 spot in that group alpha. So it's going to be an absolute dogfight in these last 3 weeks, so Sentinels better be prepared. They are playing their next match against Evil Geniuses, so I think that's a match that they're going to be able to win. But don't fall into that false sense of security that you just think you're the better team, so you're going to win it easily like Loud may have thought heading into the 2G match. Sentinels are still really good. I understood why people wanted them in the number 2 spot, but I just felt like I didn't want to put them there yet, and the match against Crew is kind of why. I don't know if I see them far above a lot of other teams in their group or in the Americas region. There's a lot of really high-end talent teams, and Sentinels is definitely one of them, but they still have some problems to figure out. I really want Celsius to get going. He's not really having a great season right now. His kills were quite low in that last match. Not that he's the one supposed to be getting all the kills or anything, but when you have a bit of a liability on your lineup, it's not very good. Not saying that I think Celsius is a liability. He's not. He's very important to that Sentinels team, but if his performance starts dipping, then that importance starts to wane. So I think he definitely needs to step up. I expect him to, as well as Narrate, who's going to be looking to bounce back after that Crew match. So we will see how the rest of this stage goes for Sentinels. Are they going to be the top of their group? That's going to be dependent on if Crew loses. So we'll see how the rest of this group stage goes for Sentinels. Maybe they get the number 1 spot in the group, maybe they don't. I think they're pretty much a lock for at least playoffs, but hey, crazier things have happened. Moving on to the number 3 spot, moving up 1 spot from where they were last week. Crew. So Crew were number 4, Sentinels were number 3. Crew beat Sentinels, so they move up 1. Pretty simple. I was thinking about moving them up to the number 2 spot, but I figured that the team that is in number 2 deserves to be there. But it is definitely hard to argue that this Crew team is not a top team in their region. They are looking fantastic right now. Mazzino has been great for them recently. Kesnet is starting to heat up. That's very important. This team looks really dangerous. This roster is built to win. We'll see if they can make it to Toronto. I'd be very interested if they're one of the 3 slots. For the past 2 years, the only international that they've been able to make it to is Champions. They're at every single Champions, but when it comes to Masters, they're not always there. So maybe this is the year that we see that change and they get to Toronto, but hey, that is still a ways away, so Crew cannot lose the plot. They're looking really good right now, continue to build off of that momentum, and maybe you end up winning the whole group. We will see. Moving on to the number 2 spot, we have staying in the same spot as last week, MIBR in number 2. So as I said, I thought about moving Crew up to number 2 and dropping MIBR down 1, but then I thought about that match against G2 and thought that MIBR did a lot of things well. They stole Pearl from them, they made the second map close, and Ascent definitely got away from them during the mid part of that match, but it wasn't a complete blowout, and there were definitely points in that match that they looked like they were going to win it. This team has been showing some great resilience this year. The rookies are continuing to look quite good. Verno against Leviathan was good, not great. Verno against G2 had a very solid match. One of the key reasons why MIBR were able to get that first map and make this one close. They still ended up losing, so they don't claim that number 1 spot in the region right now. Maybe they end up getting there facing off against other teams, but that's going to be pretty dependent on how G2 going forward, which looks to be a pretty strong run that they've already been on. I'm really excited for the future of this MIBR squad. I want to see more from Ospos right now. He hasn't looked like the world beater that we know he can in this stage yet. Ospos against Lev was okay. Ospos against G2 G2 was much better. He got 57 kills in that match. But we know what Ospas can do, and I fully expect him to do it in the near future. So if you can get him playing to that level, Genom continuing his strong play, Cortesia finding a bit more consistency, Verno looking great as well, Artson, their new IGL, who also seems to be very good at fragging, this team is in a great position. They are up against C9 next. That's a very important game for both teams, so I think they're the favorite heading in, not by a super wide margin. C9 could win that one, but MIBR are a team that is continuing to prove the doubters wrong. And moving on to the number 1 spot, no change from last week, it's G2 to no one's surprise. MIBR looked like they might have been the best chance to beat this team during this stage 1. I don't know if this team ends up going undefeated in both the group stage as well as the playoff stage, but it's increasingly looking likely. They didn't lose a match at kickoff, they haven't lost a match in stage 2 so far, they've already faced off against arguably the toughest opponent, and the next 3 teams they're facing are Energy, Leviathan, and C9. They are definitely the favorites for all 3 of those matches. It's looking like a pretty easy schedule from here on out, so maybe that gets to their heads and they stop trying later in the split, but I just don't see this team doing that. This team desperately wants to win, they want to prove their dominance as many times as they can, and I think they're going to do it. So those are the VCT Americas power rankings for week 2 of stage 1. Let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of these rankings? Where would you rate all these teams? What did you agree with me on? What did you disagree with me on? Let me know all that down below. Please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.